I was standing at the bus stop on Maple Street, holding my grandson Tommy's hand tight, when I heard someone calling my name. Margaret. Margaret Wilson, is that really you? I turned around and my heart stopped. It was my son, Richard. I hadn't seen him in almost 3 months, always making up reasons why he couldn't visit. I'd keep our phone calls super short, saying I was tired or busy with chores. Now he was standing right in front of me, and I could tell by his face he noticed everything. Welcome to Granny's Voice. I share new life stories here every day, and I'd really love it if you hit subscribe and like my video. Now let's get back into my story. I'm sure you'll enjoy it if you keep listening until the end. He saw my old winter coat with a broken zipper, the worn-out shoes with holes in the bottom that I'd been wearing for 2 years, Tommy in clothes that were too small for him, my thin face, the tired look in my eyes, and my hands shaking from being so exhausted and scared. "Mom," Richard said, walking closer, his eyes filled with worry. "Why are you waiting for the bus? What happened to your car? I bought you that nice Honda for your birthday last year. Where is it?" "I sold it." I looked away. I needed money badly. "For what?" My son's voice got tight. "Mom, what's going on? You look like you haven't slept in weeks. Why aren't you answering my calls? And where is Jessica?" I felt tears starting. For 3 months I had kept everything inside. 3 months of being scared, doing whatever they said, giving them money, hearing mean words, and living in fear every single day. Now, looking at my son, I knew I couldn't pretend anymore. "Richard, let's go somewhere private," I whispered. We walked to a small restaurant near the bus stop. My son sat Tommy down at a table, bought him some juice and a cookie, then sat across from me and took my hand. "Tell me," he said, "everything." And I told him. I told him how after Tommy was born, my daughter-in-law's mother, Patricia Moore, started visiting more and more. How at first she gave advice, then she started demanding things and finally making threats. I explained how she found out that my little house by the lake, the one my husband left me when he died, was in my name only, and how she started demanding I sign it over to Jessica for Tommy's future. Said no. My voice shook as I told him I'd explained it was my husband's gift to me, and I wanted to keep my own home. That's when everything started. Finished. My son listened quietly, just holding my hand tighter. A week after I said no, you got hurt. I looked up at him. "Remember when someone pushed you down outside your office building that night? You said it was just random crime. Remember?" My son's face went cold. "It wasn't random." The very next day, Patricia Moore came to my house. She sat in my chair, drank my tea, and said, "How's Richard doing? Heard he took a bad fall. You know, bad things happen these days, especially to people with families. Next time it could be much worse. So much worse." She was smiling when she said it. My son went pale. I watched his jaw get tight, but he stayed quiet, letting me tell everything. I was scared, so scared, but I still said no to signing. Then Jessica showed me a video. Continued. It was me supposedly yelling at Tommy, grabbing him hard, saying terrible things. Fake Richard. They cut pieces from different times, put them together, and took out what really happened, but it looks really bad. They said they would show it to the police and child services if I didn't sign the papers, that they would take Tommy away and prove I'm a bad grandma. "Those evil people," my son said out loud, the first time he'd spoken, the anger boiling inside him. "That's not all." I wiped away tears. Patricia used some friends to get copies of my bank papers and records from when I helped at the church fundraiser, and she changed them. She made it look like I was stealing money from the church. The numbers are wrong. The signatures are fake. It all looks exactly like me. She said if I didn't do what she wanted, she'd send those papers to the pastor and the police. I would be locked up and Tommy would be gone. My son closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. "Keep going. They take my whole check. Every single dollar. Jessica takes my bank card the day I get my retirement money, pulls it all out and gives it to her mother. They leave Tommy and me just $50 a week for food, bus fare, everything. I stopped buying new clothes for myself. I wear what I have. I get Tommy's clothes from thrift stores. Sometimes I borrow money from church friends just to buy food for us. The car, they made me sell it too. They told me to sell it and give them the cash. I sold it for $5,000 even though it was worth $9,000. Patricia Moore took all of it. She said it was the first payment for keeping quiet. Where is Jessica in all this? My son's voice was icy. She's completely on her mother's side. She says I should be grateful they haven't taken Tommy yet and that I need to listen or things will get worse. She watches my phone and reads my messages. They told me I couldn't tell anyone, especially you. They said if they found out I complained, next time you wouldn't just fall down. You'd end up in the hospital or worse. Patricia's nephew, Marcus, has been in jail before. It was his friends who pushed you. She told me straight out he can handle any problem. I covered my face with my hands. Everything I'd kept inside for 3 months came pouring out. The fear, the shame, feeling helpless. I cried while my son gently rubbed my arm, waiting for me to calm down. They still want the house, I continued. They keep pushing me to sign it over to Jessica, and she'll give it to her mother. They say it's only fair because Tommy is my grandson, that my husband's house should be family property. I keep saying no, but they're pushing harder and harder. Last week, Marcus's friends were standing outside Tommy's daycare, just standing there watching. It was a warning. They told me next time they'd walk right inside and take him. Why didn't you tell me? My son grabbed my hands tight. Why didn't you tell me right away? I was scared, Richard. They hurt you once. I couldn't risk them doing it again or worse, hurting your sister or taking Tommy. They have those fake papers, that video. They have people who will do anything. Trap. I don't know what to do. My son stood up, walked to the window, and stood quietly, looking out at the street. Tommy was happily eating his cookie, not understanding anything. I stared at my son's back and felt that telling him didn't make me feel better. The fear had only gotten stronger. What now? What happens when Patricia Moore finds out I told him? My son came back to the table, sat down, and looked at me. In his eyes I saw something different, something cold, hard, and serious. Mom, he said calmly. There are some things you don't know about me. What do you mean? You know I work in security consulting, but you don't know exactly what kind. I frowned. My son had always been quiet about his work. He only said he helped companies stay safe, traveled a lot, and made good money. I work in corporate intelligence and security investigations. 20 years of experience, surveillance, information gathering, threat analysis, stopping bad people. I know how to collect information that people hide. I know how to find weak spots. I know how to plan things so that the target doesn't even know they've been caught until it's too late. I stared at my son with my mouth open. Corporate intelligence, security investigations. My son, who had always seemed like a normal, hard-working man. I didn't stop that kind of work when I changed companies, he continued. I consult on serious security problems. I have connections with police, with investigators. I have people who will help if I ask. And I have skills that you never forget. Richard, I don't understand. You will now. He leaned closer. Your daughter-in-law's mother and her criminal nephew think they're so smart. They think they can blackmail, threaten, and scare people. They picked the wrong family. They touched my mother and my son. That was their biggest mistake. There was steel in his voice. I suddenly understood that the person sitting across from me wasn't just my son. This was a man who knew how to fight, really fight, not with his hands but with his brain, connections, and experience. What are you going to do? I'm going to fix this problem so they never dare to think about you or Tommy again. So that all their threats turn against them. But for that I need time. And I need your help. What kind of help? You need to act completely normal. Keep giving them the money. Keep taking the abuse. Don't show that you told me. You can't change how you act at all. This is super important. They must think you are broken. That you'll stay quiet and obey. Do you understand? I nodded, though my stomach was twisting with fear. How long? A few weeks, maybe a month. I need to gather information, prepare proof, and plan every detail. We can't rush this. If we mess up, they'll destroy all the proof and disappear. We have to act carefully with no mistakes. And if they find out I told you, they won't. We won't meet again. And we won't talk on the phone. We'll text through a special app I'm going to put on your phone. The messages will delete automatically. There will be no trace on your phone. Jessica won't find anything, even if she checks. Richard, I'm scared. I know, but you have to trust me. I won't let anyone hurt you. No one will touch you, Tommy, or your sister. Promise. I've handled bigger things than some greedy woman and her criminal nephew. Just hold on a little longer. Can you do that? I looked at Tommy, who was smiling at me, his face covered with cookie crumbs. I looked back at my son, whose eyes were absolutely sure, and I nodded. I can. Good. Now listen carefully. My son took out his phone, put an app on it for me, explained how to use it, and taught me how to erase the history. He gave me some tips on how to handle Patricia and Jessica. The main thing is not to show that anything changed. You are a broken, scared woman who's ready to do anything to protect her grandson. That's who you have to seem like. But inside, remember, this is a game, a temporary game. It will be over soon. We walked out of the restaurant. My son hugged me and kissed Tommy on the head. Hold tight, Mom. I'm right here, even if you can't see me. I walked back toward the bus stop, holding my grandson's hand. And for the first time in 3 months, I felt not just fear but hope. That same night, sitting in the kitchen of his apartment, my son took out a notebook and started writing down names, connections, and plans. The plan for the operation was forming in his head like a puzzle. 20 years in security investigations had taught him to see the whole picture. Patricia Moore, 62 years old. Nephew Marcus, 30 years old. 2 times in jail for robbery and threats. Released 2 years ago. Criminal connections maintained. Likely organized the attack on Richard. Jessica Wilson, 33 years old, weak-minded. Completely under her mother's control. High chance of cooperation if pressured correctly. Margaret's fake church documents. Need expert analysis. Proof of forgery. The video with the child. Also expert review. Confirm the editing. My son picked up his phone and called a number. Daniel, it's Richard. Yeah, it's been a while. Listen, I need help. Small private operation. Watching people, recording, tech support. Can you do it? Excellent. We'll meet tomorrow and I'll tell you the details. He hung up, called the next number, then another. By midnight, he had a team of 3 people, all former co-workers from his security days, all trusted, all ready to help privately. The work started the next day. Daniel, the former tech expert, put tiny microphones in Patricia Moore's apartment. It took 2 days of watching to figure out her schedule and 10 minutes of work while she was out shopping. The microphones were so small they couldn't be found without special equipment. They sent sound to a recorder in the apartment next door, which my son was able to rent through a real estate friend. Carlos, a former investigator, began watching Marcus. Photos, video recordings, meetings. He needed to document all of Marcus's movements and contacts. Within a week, a thick folder of material was sitting on Richard's desk. Lisa, now working for a private investigation firm, took on analyzing the documents and the video. She examined the fake church financial reports in 2 days. Signatures were clearly forged and the numbers were changed using a computer program. The signs of editing were obvious to an expert. The video with Tommy was a classic fake. Clips were cut from different moments and put together. Lisa wrote an official report that could be used in court. My son coordinated it all, analyzing the information and building the plan. After 2 weeks, he had the full picture. Patricia Moore met regularly with her nephew. Their conversations, caught by the microphones, were damning. She openly talked about how to pressure Margaret, how to force her to sign the house over, and how to use the threats. Marcus suggested making things worse, organizing another attack so that old woman finally gets it. They laughed at me, called me a pushover, and talked about how they would split the money from the house sale. Richard listened to these recordings, feeling cold anger rise within him, but he kept his feelings in check. Feelings are the enemy of investigation work. Cold thinking is required. The plan was divided into 4 steps. Step 1: the marked money. Richard used his old security contacts to get access to specially marked bills. They were regular dollar bills, but their serial numbers were written down in a database. If these bills were found on someone during a police search, it would be direct proof of a connection. I was to hand over my next retirement check using this money. Patricia would take it, pass some to her nephew, and then it would be a matter of technique. An anonymous tip to the police about Marcus's extortion activities. A search warrant. The marked bills found in his apartment. Direct connection. Step 2: the fake emergency. Patricia Moore needed to feel confident and drop her guard. Richard decided to fake his own accident. Car crash. Hospitalization. Let her think that one of the witnesses would soon be unable to talk. That the path was clear. This is when people start talking freely and acting bolder, and all their conversations would be recorded. Step 3: getting Jessica to cooperate. Richard understood that his wife was the weak link. She wasn't evil by nature, just weak-willed and terrified of her mother. Richard needed to show her the truth, how she was being used, and offer a way out. If Jessica switched sides, gave testimony, and provided access to her mother's communication, the case was won. Step 4: the final trap. Margaret agrees to sign the house over. A meeting is set at the lawyer's office. Patricia brings her nephew's muscle for security. Police with a warrant and the full package of proof would be waiting for them there. Richard reread the plan, made changes, and finished the details with the team. Everything had to work perfectly. The execution began. I handed over my next retirement check, $1,000, in the marked bills. Jessica, as usual, took my bank card, pulled out every cent, and gave the money to her mother. Patricia Moore counted it, nodding with satisfaction. Good job, Margaret. See how nice things are when you listen. Soon you'll sign the house papers and all your problems will be over. You'll live in peace. I stayed quiet, looking down, playing the role of the broken woman. Inside, I was counting the days until the end of this nightmare. 3 days later, Richard was in a car accident. Daniel arranged everything through a mechanic contact, a staged accident in a parking lot, an official police report, hospital admission, x-rays. The news quickly reached Patricia Moore through Jessica, who as a concerned wife called to ask about her husband's condition. Seriously, a car crash? Patricia Moore sat back on her sofa when she heard the news. Well, at his age and working so hard, it's not surprising. Marcus, who was sitting next to her, smirked. Maybe he'll end up too hurt to cause problems and we won't have to deal with him. One less problem, I guess. Patricia Moore lit a cigarette. The main thing is that Margaret doesn't try to complain, though. Who would she complain to? Her son's in the hospital. His wife's on my side. I have the proof. She's not going anywhere. The entire conversation was recorded. The microphone in the apartment worked perfectly. Richard, lying in his hospital bed with a fake cast, listened to the recording through headphones and nodded. Everything is going according to plan. They're getting comfortable. The following week, Carlos, using his police contacts, arranged a routine check on Marcus. An anonymous tip about possible involvement in extortion. A search warrant. The police arrived early in the morning. Marcus opened the door in his pajamas, confused and angry. What the heck? Police. Search warrant. The officer showed the document. Let us in, please. The search lasted 2 hours. They found a lot. An illegal knife, some stolen goods, but most importantly the money. $1,000 neatly hidden in a shoebox in the closet. The serial numbers were checked instantly against the database. Where did this money come from? The officer asked. Mine. I earned it. Marcus argued. Understood. These bills are linked to an active extortion case. You'll have to come downtown with us. Marcus was taken away. Patricia Moore learned about it an hour later and was in a panic. She immediately called Jessica. Marcus was arrested. They searched his place and they found something. He shouted, "The money I gave him." Did your mother-in-law rat us out? No, Mum. She doesn't know anything. She's at home. Jessica replied, nervous. Check her phone immediately. If I find out she told anyone, I swear I will. Mom, calm down. I'll check. Jessica came home, took my phone and checked everything. Calls, texts, everything, nothing suspicious. The special app Richard had put on was hidden so well. It was invisible unless you knew what to look for. It's clean, Jessica reported back. She hasn't called or texted anyone. Patricia Moore calmed down a little, but her worry stayed. Marcus was under arrest. No charges had been officially made yet, but the situation was serious. This was the moment Richard chose to act through Jessica. Carlos arranged a meeting through a counselor Jessica had once seen. The counselor called her Jessica Wilson. Hello. Do you remember me? We worked together last year. Have a request. A friend of mine wants to speak with you personally. It's important. It concerns your family. Jessica agreed to the meeting, thinking it was about some family issue. The meeting was set for a quiet coffee shop. Richard arrived first and sat in a corner booth. When Jessica walked in and saw her husband, she turned white. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be in the hospital. Sit down. Richard pointed to the chair. We need to talk. Jessica sat, clearly nervous. Listen to me carefully. Richard placed a tablet on the table. I know everything about the threats, the blackmail, the extortion, the forged documents, the edited video, everything. And I have proof. He played a recording. Patricia Moore's voice. That fool thinks she can refuse me. I'll squeeze her so hard she'll sign that house over crying. Marcus's voice. We should scare her one more time so she knows this is serious. Jessica listened, her face getting paler and paler. That's not what you think. Shut up and keep listening. The next recording, Patricia Moore. Jessica is such a wimp. I tell her, do this, do that, and she runs right away. We broke Margaret too. We'll get the house soon. Sell it and split the money. Of course we won't give Jessica anything. What does she need it for? She's useless anyway. Jessica covered her face with her hands. Do you understand your mother is using you? Richard's voice grew harsh. You are destroying your own family, scaring my mother, taking money from your son. For what? For a mother who laughs at you behind your back and plans to leave you with nothing. I thought it was for the family. What family? You've turned my mother into a terrified slave. You're stealing her dead husband's house from her. You are helping with extortion, threats, and document forgery. Do you understand? You're a criminal. Jessica sat silent, holding her head. You have a choice. Richard leaned closer. Either you keep following your mother and end up arrested next to her, or you walk out of this right now, give testimony and help us gather proof. Then you have a chance to stay out of jail and try to fix at least something with your son. What do you want from me? Your text messages with your mother. All her messages talking about the plans, the threats, her nephew's activities, access to any document she's hiding, your testimony about everything that happened, and most importantly, you keep acting normal so she suspects nothing until the end. And if I refuse, then I hand everything I have to the police. Your mother goes to trial. Her nephew is already arrested. The charges are coming and you'll go with them for helping. My mother will get custody of Tommy and you'll see your son through glass at the jail. Choose. Jessica stared at the table. Several minutes of silence, then quietly. I'll give you the messages and my testimony, but I don't want Margaret to know how low I fell. She already knows. But if you help, there's a chance your son might forgive you one day. Maybe. Jessica nodded. That same evening, Richard got full access to Patricia Moore's text messages. The messages were clear. Plans to take the house, discussions with her nephew, instructions to Jessica on controlling Margaret. All of it was now documented. All that remained was the final strike. Patricia Moore was on edge. Her nephew Marcus had been arrested for a week. The detective was asking uncomfortable questions about the money's origin. She felt the case turning dangerous, but couldn't figure out the leak. Margaret was quiet, obedient, clearly broken. Jessica was doing what she was told. Richard was in the hospital, and judging by the latest updates, the doctor said recovery would take months. "Maybe it's time to finish the house thing," she told Jessica at dinner. "This is taking too long." "You said Margaret was holding back." "Yes, Mom. She's scared. She says it's her husband's gift. She can't just give it away. Tell her there's no more time to think. She needs to sign the papers this week. Marcus is locked up. I need money for his lawyer. We'll sell the house and get at least $200,000. That'll be enough for me." "What about me?" Jessica tried to keep her tone normal, but inside she was burning with shame. "You'll be fine. Don't worry. The main thing is to get Margaret to sign, threaten her. Say the daycare will find out about the video, or that we'll visit Richard in the hospital so she understands once and for all." Jessica nodded, recording the conversation on a recorder in her pocket and sending the file to Richard through the secret app. Richard was released from the hospital 10 days later. The doctors supposedly let him go home but told him to rest. He deliberately looked weak and tired when Jessica drove him home. Patricia Moore even sent a formal message wishing him health. In reality, during those 10 days, Richard had coordinated the final stage of the operation. All materials were ready. Recordings of conversations, text messages, Jessica's testimony, expert analysis of the forged documents and video, and information on the marked bills found with Marcus. All that was left was to stage the finale to catch Patricia Moore red-handed. Carlos negotiated with the detective handling Marcus's case, showing him some of the materials, enough to get him interested, but not revealing all the cards. The detective, an experienced man in his 50s, carefully reviewed the recordings and documents. "Organized extortion, threats, document forgery," he murmured, setting the papers down. "This is serious jail time if we prove everything, but we need a clean caught-in-the-act situation. What do you propose?" "A sting operation," Richard replied. "The victim agrees to sign the house over. A meeting is set at the lawyer's office. Patricia Moore will arrive, probably with one of her people. The moment she demands the signature, thinking she's won, your people walk in with a warrant. All the proof is in her hands. All her words are recorded. The attempt to steal the property is documented." The detective thought, "I'll need approval from my boss, and the lawyer must be in on it. I'll find the right lawyer. They'll agree to help if we explain the situation. When do you plan to do this?" "In 3 days. Will you be ready?" "I will." They shook hands. The operation was in the final stage. I was in the kitchen when a message came from my son on the secret app. "Get ready. Tomorrow, tell Jessica you agree to sign the house. The day after tomorrow, set the meeting with the lawyer. Ends in 3 days. Hold tight." I took a deep breath. 3 days. Just 3 days until the end of this nightmare. My hands shook as I deleted the message. It was scary. So scary I wanted to cry. But I trusted my son. He wouldn't let me down. That evening when Jessica came back from errands, I said quietly, "I agree. I'll sign the papers for the house." Jessica froze, staring at me. "What?" "I can't live like this anymore. Let them take the house. Just let them leave Tommy and me in peace. I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of having no money. Let them have what they want." I spoke with such sadness that Jessica, who knew the truth, almost believed me. I was good at acting. Or maybe 3 months of fear had taught me that sound of being broken. "Are you serious?" She tried to sound normal, though she was feeling terrible inside with guilt. "Yes. Call your mother. Tell her I'm ready. Tell her to set up the meeting with the lawyer." Jessica went out onto the balcony and called Patricia Moore. She answered after the first ring. "Well, Mom, Margaret gave up. She agrees to sign." Pause, then a happy laugh. "I knew it. I knew that weakling wouldn't hold up. When does she want to meet the lawyer?" "The day after tomorrow." "Perfect. I'll organize everything. You make sure she doesn't change her mind. And tell her to bring the original house papers." Everything needs to be ready to process right away. Okay, Mom. Patricia Moore hung up and immediately called another number. Richard, listening through the microphone in her apartment, started recording. Hello, Bruno. It's Patricia. Listen, I need your help the day after tomorrow. Need you to come to a lawyer's office. Keep an eye on a deal. My mother-in-law is signing over her house. I'm afraid she'll back out at the last minute. Will you be there? Just stand next to her so she knows we mean business. Yes, just like last time with her son. Excellent. I'll meet you at the office at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Richard smiled. She was driving herself right into the trap. She was bringing a documented enforcer to the lawyer's office to scare the victim. This was direct proof of forcing someone. Couldn't have planned it better. He called the detective. The day after tomorrow, 2 p.m. Attorney Sarah's office, 45 Oak Street. Patricia Moore will come with an associate named Bruno, a guy with a criminal record for assault. He'll threaten my mother to get her to sign. Your people need to enter the moment the documents are passed to the lawyer. Got it. We'll be ready. The lawyer, Miss Sarah, was a strict but kind woman. When Richard explained the situation and showed her the recordings and documents, she immediately agreed to help. I've been practicing for 25 years. I've seen it all, she said. But to so meanly take someone's house through threats. What should I do? Act normal. Accept the documents. Start the paperwork. Ask normal questions. The main thing is to document that my mother is acting under pressure. If Patricia Moore threatens her or her friend starts applying pressure, try to document it with words. Ask Margaret if she really wants to sign the house over, if there are any threats. Patricia won't be able to hold back. She'll start justifying herself or pushing harder. That's when your police come in. And if she stays quiet, she won't. I know these types. When they're close to winning, they become overconfident, arrogant. She will mess up. Very well. I'll help. All that remained was to wait for the day. The morning of the meeting, I barely slept. Tommy woke up early wanting attention, but I could hardly focus. My son sent a short message. All set. I'll be nearby in a car across the street from the office. Don't be afraid. You got this. Jessica was tense. She knew her mother was about to crash, but she was still worried. What if something goes wrong? What if she manages to get away somehow? At 1:30 we drove to the lawyer's office. Patricia Moore was waiting by the entrance. Beside her stood a huge guy with tattoos and a mean face. Bruno, the enforcer. He looked at me in a way that made me shiver. Well, finally you came to your senses. Patricia Moore smiled smugly. Did you bring the papers? Yes. I showed the folder. Excellent. Let's go. We walked into the office. Miss Sarah greeted us with a professional smile and offered us seats. The office was small, bright, with a big desk and shelves of files. A security camera, normal for a lawyer's office, was in the corner. All right. Miss Sarah opened her notepad. You wish to transfer the deed for your house? Margaret Wilson. Do I understand correctly that the property belongs to you from your late husband? Yes, I answered softly. And you wish to transfer it to whom? My daughter-in-law, Jessica Wilson. Understood. Is this your free choice? I hesitated. Patricia Moore instantly cut in. Of course it's her choice. She wants the house in her daughter-in-law's name. That's normal for a family. I'm asking Margaret Wilson, the lawyer said firmly. Margaret, is anyone forcing you to transfer this property? Are there any threats? No. I looked at the floor. I want to do this myself. Bruno in the corner coughed loudly on purpose. The hint was clear. Miss Sarah looked closely at me, then at Patricia Moore, then at the enforcer. Very well. I need the documents. The deed, your ID, the death certificate. I, with my hands shaking, took out the folder and put the documents on the table. The lawyer began looking at them, making notes. Patricia more nervously played with her purse. The closeness of winning made her impatient. Will this take much longer? She finally snapped. As long as the law requires, Miss Sarah replied calmly. Margaret, do you understand that after this transfer, you will lose all ownership rights to this house? I understand. And you are ready for that? Yes. Good. Then I need you to read the text of the agreement and sign here, here and here. She held out the document. I took the pen. My hand shook so hard I could barely hold it. Patricia Moore leaned closer, watching every move. Come on. Come on. Don't take forever, she hissed through her teeth. I made the first signature, the second. I raised the pen over the spot for the third signature and froze. What is it? Patricia Moore raised her voice. Sign it. I don't know. Tears fell from my eyes onto the paper. Good grief. Patricia Moore grabbed my arm. Are you backing out after everything we discussed? Did you forget what happens if you refuse? Patricia Moore, the lawyer said sharply, standing up. Please calm down. Margaret Wilson has the right to change her mind at any time. What right? Patricia Moore turned to the lawyer. She's backing out. She thinks she can just walk away. Bruno got up from his chair, taking a scary step toward the table, silent but threatening. Young man, sit down, Miss Sarah ordered. Or I will call security. Sit down, Bruno. Patricia Moore tried to calm herself. Margaret, sweetie, you know this is for your own good, for Tommy. Sign it and everything will be fine. If you don't sign, remember our talk about the daycare, about the police. Are you threatening her? The lawyer stood firm. I'm not threatening. I'm explaining. Patricia Moore turned back to me. I'm telling you for the last time, sign it now. Just then the office door flew open. 3 people in regular clothes walked in, followed by the detective and 2 police officers. Patricia Moore. The detective pulled out his badge. Police. You are under arrest for suspicion of extortion, threats, and forcing someone to sign documents. He turned to the enforcer. Bruno, you are also under arrest for helping. Patricia Moore went white. What extortion? I didn't do anything. We have recordings of your conversations, text messages, and witness testimony. The detective nodded to the officers. Take them in. Bruno tried to run for the door, but he was stopped in a second. Patricia Moore thrashed and screamed. This is a setup. Margaret, tell them you wanted to sign the house over yourself. Jessica, why are you quiet? Jessica sat with her head down. Jessica, she grabbed her shoulder. Say something. I gave testimony, Mom, she said quietly. I told them everything about the threats, the blackmail, the forged documents, the attack on Richard, everything. Patricia Moore pulled back like she'd been hit. You betrayed me. You forced me to betray my own family. Jessica lifted her eyes. I ruined my life because I was afraid to say no to you. But no more. I won't be your puppet anymore. Patricia Moore. The detective showed the warrant. You are being charged under the criminal code with extortion committed by a group with a threat of violence. The sentence is 5 to 12 years. You have the right to remain silent. This is a mistake. I didn't do anything. Margaret, tell them. I slowly stood up, looking my daughter-in-law's mother straight in the eye. You took 3 months of my life. You drove me to poverty. You scared me, embarrassed me, took my last dollars, threatened my grandson, and ordered my son to be hurt. You thought I would break forever. But you were wrong. I am not alone. Patricia Moore was led out in handcuffs. Bruno too. Their shouts could be heard getting quieter down the hallway. The detective came to me. Margaret Wilson, we need you to give an official statement. Tell us everything that happened in detail. Are you ready to come to the station now? Yes. He nodded. Good, Miss Sarah. Thank you for your help. We will need your testimony as well. The lawyer nodded. I walked out onto the street. My son's car was parked across from the office. Richard got out and hugged me. I burst into tears, burying my face in his shoulder. It's over, he whispered. Everything is going to be all right now. The next 2 weeks were filled with interviews, experts, and court procedures. Marcus was charged with organizing the attack and extortion, proven by the marked bills. He was found guilty quickly. A repeat crime was bad for him. 7 years in prison. Patricia Moore was charged with 3 things: extortion, document forgery, and making threats. The investigation lasted 1 month. Jessica gave detailed testimony, telling about every episode of the blackmail. Richard provided the recordings that captured Patricia Moore's every word. Expert analysis confirmed that my church financial documents had been faked. The video with Tommy was ruled edited. The case against them fell apart. The church apologized, gave me back my volunteer position, and donated money to help me as an apology. Jessica was not charged criminally thanks to her help with the investigation, but Richard filed for divorce. The process was quick. Jessica didn't fight it, admitted her guilt, and agreed to all terms. Patricia Moore received 3 years in prison with a restraining order stopping her from coming near her former mother-in-law or grandson within 500 feet. Her age, no prior crimes, and partial admission of guilt were factors. But most importantly, she lost everything. Her daughter, who refused to talk to her, her grandson, whom she would never see again, and the money she spent on lawyers. She was forced to sell her apartment to pay the legal fees. I stood on the courthouse steps when the decision was announced, feeling a huge weight lifted from my shoulders. My son was next to me, holding Tommy in his arms. "Grandma, why are you crying?" the boy asked. "Happy tears, sweetie." I hugged my grandson. "Just happy tears." Jessica asked for a meeting a week after the divorce. We met at the same coffee shop where Richard had first talked to her. "I know you won't forgive me," she began, unable to look up. "I know I destroyed everything, but I want to try to fix what I still can. I want to be involved in Tommy's life, see him, and help with money. I'm not asking to fix our relationship. Just give me a chance to be a mother to my son." I was silent for a long time, staring into my cup of cold coffee. "You caused me so much pain, Jessica. You stood by while your mother embarrassed me. You watched my phone, took my money, and threatened me. You chose your mother over me. I know, and I'll live with that forever. But Tommy isn't to blame for your mistakes. He has a right to know his mother. So, I will agree to visits once a week on weekends with my son present. If you prove you've changed, that you can be a normal mother without your mom's influence, then we'll see." "Thank you." Relief sounded in her voice. "I won't let you down." She stood up and offered her hand. I did not take it. "This isn't forgiveness, Jessica. This is a chance for Tommy, not for you." She nodded and left. 6 months passed. I got a part-time job at the local library. My income increased. I bought a used car, a small sedan, perfect for trips with my grandson. I stayed in my house, the one my husband had left me, now truly mine with no one able to threaten it. Life was slowly, step by step, getting better. Nightmares about my daughter-in-law's mother became less often. The fear went away. I started smiling again, making plans and dreaming. My son often visited, playing with Tommy and telling him stories. The boy loved his dad, always asking for interesting tales. "Dad, were you really an investigator?" Tommy asked one evening, sitting on Richard's lap. "I was, buddy." "Did you spy on people?" "Not exactly spying. I helped companies stay safe from bad people, and I still help people." "Who?" "Of course. I help the most important things I have, you and your grandma." Tommy hugged his dad. "You're the best dad in the world." Richard looked at me. I was standing in the kitchen making dinner, humming a song. I was smiling, alive, free, and happy, just as he had always wanted to see me. Everything worked out. The operation was a success. The enemy was stopped. The family was protected. And justice had won. Just like the good work of his career, except the reason was personal, not professional. "Mom, dinner's ready," I called. "Coming." Richard lifted his grandson into his arms. "The boss calls us to the table." We sat down to dinner, the 3 of us. My daughter couldn't come. She was visiting a friend. Tommy talked about preschool, his new friends, and his teacher. I listened, giving him food and laughing. Richard looked at us and thought that these moments were why he had needed to do the operation, for his mother to laugh again, and for his grandson to grow up happy. After dinner, Tommy fell asleep on the sofa, holding a stuffed animal. I covered him with a blanket and sat down next to my son. Richard, I wanted to say thank you for everything. If it weren't for you, I never would have gotten out of that hole. Patricia Moore would have crushed me completely, taken the house, the money, maybe even Tommy. You would have managed on your own, Richard argued. Just later. You're strong and smart. I just made it faster and made sure it was legal. No, Richard. I was broken. 3 months of fear had done its job. If it hadn't been for you stepping in, I would have signed those papers out of being desperate and exhausted. I would have signed and lost everything. But you didn't sign. You waited and trusted me. That takes strength too. I hugged my son. You taught me the most important thing. Never give up. Even when it seems like there's no way out. There's always a way out. If you don't give up. Remember that and pass it on to Tommy when he grows up. We sat in silence, listening to the quiet breathing of the sleeping boy. It was getting dark outside. The city lights were coming on. Life was moving forward. A new clean life free from fear and threats. Richard stood up, getting ready to leave. Good night, Mom. Good night, Richard. And thank you again for just being you. He smiled, kissed my forehead and left. I stayed alone with my grandson in my house. My house. No one could take it. No one could threaten me. I was free. Finally free. A year had passed since Patricia Moore was led out of the lawyer's office in handcuffs. A year of freedom, a year of new life. A year of healing from the nightmare that had seemed endless. I sat in my living room. The house felt warm and safe now. The fear that had lived in these walls for 3 months was gone. On my table lay the bank statement. The part-time library job paid well enough. Now I could not only provide everything Tommy needed, but also save money for the future. The house was in perfect condition. I'd repainted the kitchen, bought new curtains, and planted flowers in the garden. Tommy had his own room filled with toys, books, and learning games. The boy was growing up happy, surrounded by the love of his grandma and father. Jessica continued to meet with her son every Saturday, at first with Richard watching, and then when I was sure she had really changed, I allowed visits alone. Jessica took Tommy to the park, the library, and bought him gifts. Most importantly, she talked to her son, cared about his life, and tried to make up for lost time. I saw that she was truly sorry. It didn't mean I forgave her, but I accepted that people can make mistakes and try to fix them. Jessica did not talk to her mother. No calls, no texts, no visits. Patricia Moore tried to reach out several times, sending letters asking for forgiveness and help, but Jessica ignored her. She had chosen her son over her mother. Too late, but she had chosen him. On a Saturday, Tommy, Richard, and I went to the park. Spring was warm, and the trees were covered in new leaves. Flowers were blooming in the gardens. Tommy ran ahead, chasing birds and laughing. Richard walked alongside me, his hands in the pockets of his light jacket. "How are you doing, Mom?" Richard asked. "We haven't talked in a while." "I'm good. Lots of time with Tommy, but that's wonderful. I feel needed." "You were always needed, especially by me." Richard smiled. "You know, when I changed careers from corporate work, I thought all the investigation stuff was behind me, that I'd just be a consultant sitting in an office looking at reports. But it turns out the most important operation was waiting for me. The operation to save my own mother. And you handled it perfectly, like a true professional. The risk was high. If we'd failed, you would have lost everything. The house, your freedom, maybe even Tommy. I couldn't afford to make a mistake. And you weren't afraid that something would go wrong?" Richard paused. "I was afraid. Course I was afraid. But fear is normal. The key is not to let it control you. Use it to make you act more carefully, more thoughtfully. Fear makes you pay attention if you know how to work with it." Tommy ran back, out of breath, his cheeks red. "Dad, Grandma, look. Found a pretty rock. Can I take it home?" "Of course, sweetie." Smiled. The boy ran off, holding his find. Richard watched him. He's happy. That's the main thing. Kids need to grow up safe without fear. You're giving him that. We're giving him that. Corrected. You're a big part of his life too. A huge part. We walked to a bench and sat down. Tommy played nearby, building something with rocks and sticks. Richard, I wanted to ask something. I turned to my son. You always spoke about your work in general terms, but never gave details. What exactly did you do in security investigations? What were the operations like? Richard looked into the distance. Most of it is private. My agreements are still active, but I can tell you a little. Not the details, but the general picture. The life of an investigator isn't what you see in movies. It's not car chases, fights, and dramatic moments. It's mainly working with your brain, gathering information, analysis, planning. You watch people for weeks, learning their habits, weaknesses, and connections. Then you set up the operation to get the necessary information or stop a threat. Everything has to be quiet, clean, without noise. Like with Patricia Moore. Roughly, I used the same methods as before. Watching, listening, getting people to cooperate, except the enemy wasn't a corporate spy, but a greedy woman and her criminal nephew. But the rules are the same. Gather proof, lead them into a trap, stop them. And were there dangerous moments? Times when you feared for your life? Richard was quiet for a moment. There were a few times operations almost failed. Once I was nearly caught in a bad situation. I had to leave a location quickly at night without backup. Another time the team I was working with was discovered. One person got hurt badly. The rest of us barely got out. That was terrible. You never talked about that. I didn't want to worry the family. You knew the work was dangerous, but I hid the details. Why give you sleepless nights? You worried enough as it was. I took my son's hand. You're a hero, Richard. A real hero for your work back then and for us now. I was just doing my job. Doing it well because I loved it and because I understood that people's safety depended on my work. Back then, many people at companies. Now, the two people most precious to me. Tommy ran up, showing his creation of sticks and rocks. Dad, look. I built a castle. An excellent castle. Richard picked up his grandson. A truly strong castle. Dad, will you tell me about being an investigator? About how you caught the bad guys? Richard looked at me. He nodded. I will, buddy, when you're a little older. It's a long story for many evenings. But will you tell me a little bit today? Okay, listen. Once I needed to find out where a dangerous person was hiding. He was very smart, always moving locations and trusting no one. But he had one weakness. He loved old coins and collected them. And we used that. Tommy listened, eyes wide. Richard told the story, making it simple, removing the dangerous details, turning a real operation into a cool tale. I listened too, understanding that every word my son spoke was part of a life he had once kept private. In the evening, after Tommy was asleep, I sat on the porch with a cup of tea. The neighborhood was quiet. Somewhere below, a car passed by. But here at my house it was quiet and peaceful. I thought about the past year. So much had changed. A year ago, I was a scared, broken woman who feared every phone call and every knock at the door. I gave away my last dollars, took abuse, and lived in fear for myself and my grandson. It had felt like there was no way out, that I was trapped forever. Now I was free, working part-time, earning enough, and raising my grandson with love and safety. Patricia Moore could no longer hurt me. The prison time and restraining order kept her away. Jessica no longer controlled my every move, took my money or watched my phone. She was simply a mother who saw her son once a week. Nothing more, nothing less. I realized that the main lesson I had learned from this story was never to give up. Even when it feels like you're at a dead end, that all paths are closed, there is always a way out. You just need to find the strength to ask for help, to trust those who can help. If I hadn't run into my son at the bus stop that day, if I had kept quiet, if I had continued to take it, how would it have ended? I would have signed the house over. Patricia Moore would have sold it, taken the money, and left Tommy and me with poverty and broken hopes, or even worse, taken my grandson through the police using the fake proof. But I had spoken up, trusted my son, and he saved me. My phone buzzed. A text from a library coworker. "Can you work Monday morning?" Susan called in sick. I replied, "Yes, no problem. Just a normal work text. A normal life." How good it felt for life to be normal again. A month later, something unexpected happened. I got a call from an unknown number. "Margaret Wilson, this is attorney David Brown. I represent Patricia Moore." I stiffened. "I'm listening. What do you need?" "My client is asking for a meeting with you. Private meeting. She wants to talk, apologize, and explain some things." "No." Cut him off right away. "I don't want to see her. We have a court order keeping her away. The meeting will be in a safe location with an attorney present. Yours if you wish. No breaking of the order. Patricia Moore has admitted her mistakes and is in counseling. She is truly sorry and wants to ask for your forgiveness. I don't need her apologies. Margaret Wilson, I understand your feelings, but sometimes a face-to-face meeting helps close a painful time in life. Think about it. If you decide to agree, call me." He gave the number and hung up. I sat looking at my phone. A meeting with Patricia Moore. Why? To hear more excuses, tricks, and attempts to play the victim. That evening I told my son, "What do you think? Should I go or not?" Richard thought for a moment. "That's your decision. But I can give you advice. If you go, it must be for you, not for her. If you need to look her in the eye and say everything you think, go. If you need to close this time completely, go. But if you're afraid she'll start manipulating, pressuring, or playing on your feelings again, don't go. You owe her nothing." "I'm not afraid of her anymore," I said. "It's strange, but I truly don't fear her. She no longer has power over me." "Then you decide." Thought for 3 days. Then I called the attorney. I agreed to the meeting, but only with my son there, and for no more than 30 minutes. Agreed. The meeting was set for the small restaurant. I arrived with Richard and sat at a table by the window. Patricia Moore entered with her attorney. I hadn't seen her in a whole year and was startled by the change. My daughter-in-law's mother looked old, truly old. Her hair was gray, her face was thin, and her back was bent. She looked every bit her 62 years, maybe more. She was dressed simply, cheaply, without any of her former confidence. We sat across from each other. Patricia Moore looked at the table, not meeting my eyes. "Hello, Margaret," she said quietly. "Hello." I kept my voice cold. "You wanted to talk. Please speak." Patricia Moore sighed. "I want to apologize for everything I did, for the threats, the blackmail, for turning your life into a nightmare. I was obsessed with greed. I wanted the money, the house, and I didn't think about the results. I didn't think about the pain I was causing." "You thought about it perfectly fine," I replied. "You planned every step, organized the attack on my son, forged documents, and edited a video of my grandson. These were not random acts. They were a planned system of blackmail." "I know. I realize it now. The counselor I'm working with helped me understand how toxic and controlling I was. How I ruined the lives of my daughter, my grandson, and you. I lost everything. Jessica won't speak to me. I don't see Tommy. The apartment is sold. Have no money, no friends. I'm alone. And you want me to feel sorry for you?" My voice had steel. "No, I'm not asking for pity. I deserve what I got. I just want you to know that I am truly sorry. If I could go back in time, I would never have started any of this." I looked at her for a long time silently, then said, "Do you know the most terrible thing about your story? It's not that you tried to steal the house, not the threats, and not the blackmail. It's that you destroyed a family. You turned your own daughter into a puppet, took away her will, and forced her to betray her mother-in-law. You nearly took away my grandson's grandma. You did everything to make 3 people, me, Jessica, and Tommy, miserable. For what? For money. For a house." Patricia Moore was silent, tears running down her cheeks. "I can't forgive you," I continued. "I went through 3 months of nightmare. Had no money. I was afraid. I cried at night. I thought about ending my life. You drove me to the edge. And the only thing that saved me was my son. The man you ordered to be hurt. Richard sat next to me, calm and quiet. His presence gave me strength. But, I paused. I release you. I don't forgive you, but I release you. You no longer have power over me. You no longer take up space in my thoughts. You are the past. A painful, hard past, but the past. I'm moving forward, building my life, raising my grandson, and you can live with your results. Patricia Moore covered her face with her hands, crying. I don't deserve your kindness. This isn't kindness. This is freedom. My freedom from you. Goodbye, Patricia Moore. We won't be seeing each other again. I stood up. Richard rose too. We walked out of the restaurant, leaving my former daughter-in-law's mother and her attorney at the table. Outside, I took a deep breath. How do you feel? Richard asked. Light, like a heavy weight has been lifted. I said everything I needed to say. I don't need anything else from her. Good. You acted with respect for yourself. We walked toward the car. I glanced back at the restaurant where the bent figure of Patricia Moore was visible through the glass. Once that woman had seemed all-powerful, scary, and unbeatable. Now she was just a sad old woman paying the price for her greed. Life continued in its flow. Tommy started first grade. I chose a good school near home with nice teachers and fun after-school programs. The boy loved reading and joined the book club. His father taught him to play checkers, explaining that checkers was like investigation work. You had to plan several moves ahead and guess what the other person would do. Jessica continued to meet with her son. Slowly, their relationship got better. Tommy got used to having a mother who came on Saturdays but lived somewhere else. It became the new normal. The child didn't ask extra questions. He accepted the situation as it was. I sometimes met people at the library who asked, "Why don't you have a partner? You're so kind, smart, and strong." I smiled and answered, "I'm happy just the way I am. I have my grandson, my son, and my work. I have enough." And it was true. I didn't feel the emptiness of being alone. Maybe someday I would meet someone who would become a part of my life. Or maybe not. I had learned to be happy on my own. Richard continued his consulting work, helping his mother and son, living a calm and steady life. Sometimes he got calls from former co-workers. He was invited to meetings of security professionals. He went, talked, and remembered the old days. But the greatest joy in his life was his mother and son. One evening, as the three of us, Richard, Tommy, and I sat down to dinner, the boy suddenly asked, "Dad, will you finally tell me about being an investigator?" "Big now." "I'm 7. Richard laughed. 7 is a big age indeed. "All right, I'll tell you, but not all at once. Just a little at a time. It's a long story for many evenings." "Yay!" Tommy bounced in his chair. "Start right now." "Okay, listen. Working in security investigations starts with being checked out for a long time. They study your background, your family, your friends, and they test how strong you are. Then they train you. Years of training, learning, understanding people, watching techniques, self-defense. You have to be able to do everything. Understand technology, read people like a book." Tommy listened, eyes wide. "What did you learn?" "Many things. How to stay calm under pressure, how to gather information without people knowing, how to plan operations carefully. In our work, thinking is the key. Without it, you can't help people. You won't understand what's really happening. And you were in dangerous places. Some places, yes. Different cities, different situations. I worked under different cover stories. Consultant, advisor, analyst. The main thing was that no one was supposed to guess what I really did. It's like a detective in a movie. It's similar, but without the special effects. The real work of an investigator is patience, paying attention, and knowing how to wait. Sometimes you sit and watch for days, learning about a target, writing down who they meet and where they go. It's boring but necessary. And was there danger? Richard glanced at me. He nodded. He could tell a little, but without too much detail. There was once I was nearly caught. I was working on a case gathering information about a bad group of people. They figured out someone was following them and started checking. I had to leave quickly, abandon my plans, and hide for a few days. I had to change my appearance and stay somewhere safe. It was tough, scary, and cold, but I managed. You're a hero, Dad. I was just doing my job. Like many other people who protect others, police officers, firefighters, security guards, they are all heroes every day. I listened to this conversation and thought how wonderful it was that Tommy was growing up with a father who taught him not just games and school subjects, but life. He taught him to be strong, responsible, and fair. He taught him not to give up, not to fear hard times, and to protect the weak. After dinner, when Tommy was asleep, Richard and I sat in the kitchen drinking tea. Richard, thanks for the story. Tommy loved it. He needs those kinds of stories. Boys need to grow up understanding that there are real values. Honor, duty, protecting loved ones, not money, not power, but those things. You're raising him right. I worry sometimes that I spoil him, that I'm too soft. You're an excellent father. Being strict and being kind must be balanced. You love him, you care for him, but you also set limits. That's right. Porty. You know, sometimes I think, what if I hadn't run into you at the bus stop that day? What if I had stayed quiet and continued to suffer? No need to think about what might have been. You ran into me and you spoke up. That's the key. You weren't afraid to ask for help. Many women stay quiet, afraid, ashamed, thinking they can handle it alone. And then it turns out to be too late. That's why it's important to talk about it. If any of your friends find themselves in a similar situation, you now know you must act, find help, and not stay silent. Silence is the bully's helper. He nodded. I'll remember that. We sat in silence, listening to the wind outside the window. The neighborhood went on with its life. Thousands of people solved their problems, felt joy, felt sad, loved and disagreed. Normal life. And I was grateful for that normality, for being able to sit peacefully at home, not fearing a knock at the door. For being able to plan the future without worrying about giving away my last dollars. For my grandson growing up happy and for having my son nearby who would always protect me. Several more months passed. One evening, Tommy was doing homework and I was making dinner when the phone rang. An unknown number. Hello, Margaret Wilson. This is attorney David Brown. We met a year ago. Got tense. I'm listening. I'm very sorry to give you this news. Patricia Moore passed away last night, a heart attack. I'm calling because she left a letter. She asked me to give it to you if anything happened. Froze. She died. Yes. The funeral is the day after tomorrow. If you want to come, although I understand you probably won't. No, I won't come. Can you email the letter to me? Of course. Please tell me the address. I told him, said goodbye, and hung up, sitting down on a chair, trying to understand the news. Patricia Moore was dead. The woman who had caused me so much pain no longer existed. I didn't feel joy, but there was no pity either, just emptiness. That time was finally closed. That evening, after Tommy was asleep, I opened my email. The letter had arrived. I opened it and began to read. Margaret, if you are reading this letter, it means I am gone. I want you to know a few things. First, I was truly sorry. Our meeting at the restaurant was not an act. I realized how terrible I had been. Greed blinded me. I lost my humanity. Second, I am proud that you did not break. You turned out to be stronger than I thought. You found a way out and protected yourself and your grandson. That deserves respect. Third, forgive Jessica. She became the way she was because of me. I raised her to be weak, dependent, and I didn't teach her to be strong. That is my fault. She is trying to change. Give her a chance. Fourth, tell Tommy that his grandma loved him in her own way. A wrong, harmful way, but she loved him. Please don't let him remember me as a monster. And finally, you deserve happiness. Don't be afraid to trust people again. Don't be afraid to open your heart. Not everyone is like me. There are good people. Your son is proof of that. Goodbye, Patricia. I finished reading the letter and closed my computer. I sat for a long time, staring into the darkness outside the window. Then I said quietly, "Goodbye, Patricia Moore. May you find peace." And at that moment I felt the last thread connecting me to that nightmare break. Now everything was truly over. 2 years later, I was standing in the kitchen of my house. The place felt like home now, warm and welcoming. Tommy was in 3rd grade, doing great in school and winning spelling competitions. Jessica met with her son regularly. Their relationship had become warm. She had started a new life and seemed happier. I was happy for her. Everyone deserved a second chance. Richard lived nearby and stopped by almost every day. He had turned 65 but was energetic, active, and full of life. He recently started teaching a class on safety at the community center. His stories became popular. Today was a weekend. The whole family had gathered for lunch. Tommy, Richard, and I. My daughter was visiting friends. The table was set, smelling of delicious food. Outside it was sunny spring. "Grandma." Tommy pulled a certificate from his backpack. "Look, I won the spelling bee." "Way to go, buddy." Richard took the certificate and looked at it. "I knew you could do it. Remember what I told you. Learning is brain training. The one who can think carefully wins." "I remember, and I studied the way you taught me." I looked at this scene and felt complete happiness. My grandson was healthy, smart, and happy. My son was nearby, wise, strong, and loving. My life was filled with meaning, work, and love. The nightmare was long in the past. It had no power over now. After lunch, we went for a walk in the park. Tommy ran ahead. Richard and I walked slowly behind. Richard put his arm around my shoulders. "Are you happy?" "Yes, Richard. Very happy." "I'm glad. That's all I ever wanted, for you to be happy." We walked along the path. The sun shone through the leaves of the trees. Birds sang. Children laughed somewhere in the distance. A normal spring day. A normally happy life. Tommy turned around. "Dad, Grandma, come on faster. I want to show you where the rabbit lives." We walked faster and caught up with the boy. The 3 of us walked further into the park. And I thought that this was true happiness. Not money, not houses, not jobs. But these moments when you are with the people you love most, when the sun is shining and when there is peace and calm inside. I had been through nightmare but had come out of it. I hadn't broken. I had become stronger. I had learned not to be afraid to ask for help, not to be ashamed of weakness, and to trust my loved ones. And most importantly, I had learned to forgive. Not Patricia Moore, but myself for taking it, for staying quiet, for being afraid. Now I knew I was stronger than I thought, and those who would protect me would always be by my side. Life moved on, a beautiful life full of hope, and there was so much good still to come. I'm really glad you're here and that I could share my story with you. If you liked it, show me by liking the video and subscribing to my channel. Let's see how many of us there are. Write in the comments which city you're watching from and what time it is. I'm so curious to know where all you wonderful people are tuning in from. If you want to support me a little extra, you can also send a small donation. I share new life stories for you every single day. And now, 2 of my most popular stories will pop up on the screen so you can choose what to watch next.